22. The following week, Catherine sat alone in the graveyard next to Sister Sorcia's plot. She just couldn't fathom it. She guessed that in Sister Nora's twisted mind, she thought her persecution of Sorcia was justified. So, what did she know about Sister Sorcia? Was she hiding a secret from her past, too? But what sordid mystery could she have concealed? It was sheer curiosity at this point that made Catherine want to know the answer to her question, but she had no resources to help her find out. Perhaps she just had to accept the fact that some questions would never be answered here. Catherine was just beginning to resign herself to this fact when she heard an awkward cough behind her. Startled by the noise, she jumped and whipped her head around to face the intruder. Father Michael was standing right outside the graveyard fence. He appeared nervous as he twisted his cap between his hands and refused to meet her eye. He gestured towards the graveyard with a limp hand, silently asking Catherine for permission to enter the grounds. Suspicious of his actions, Catherine narrowed her eyes and, with reluctance, nodded her head, allowing him to join her next to Sister Sorcia's grave. It was silent for a few moments before Father Michael broke the peace by speaking. "She wasn't what you thought she was," he said matter-of-factly. Not wanting to hear any falsities about her friend, Catherine stood up to face him as her anger poured out. "You didn't even know her!" she shouted. She couldn't believe the audacity of Father Michael. He sighed. "You're right. I didn't exactly know her, but I know what I saw, and she was quite light-fingered." Catherine scoffed in disbelief and folded her arms across her chest. "I know you don't believe it, but before you came here there were many cases of orphans' personal possessions going missing. Of course, finding the items wasn't on Sister Nora's radar, so they were never recovered. There was chatter in the halls and some of the girls began to turn on each other, but no one knew who the culprit was. That was, until Sister Sorcia was with me in the chapel one evening. She always offered to clean up after the sermons after everyone had retired to bed. It just so happened that I had a few things that I had forgotten to attend to, so I arrived later than planned that night. I think perhaps she didn't hear me entering the chapel as she had her back to me when I arrived. At first I took no notice of what she was doing, but then I saw her about to slip a small chalice into her pocket. I called out to her, and she dropped it in fright. I moved towards her, and we both bent down to pick it up. I heard a metallic sound coming from her pocket, like little small chains rattling together. Our eyes met, and she blushed. I asked her to empty her pockets, but she refused, so I reached into her pocket and pulled out some of the necklaces that had been stolen from the girls that week. I couldn't believe it. She was the last person I would have thought would steal from anyone. Like you, I had been misled believing she was an honest, gentle soul. But alas, said Father Michael before clearing his throat, looks can be deceiving. I was firm with her, told her she needed to return all the items she had taken, and I thought that would be the end of it. She shuffled down the chapel aisle, off towards the double doors, and just when she thought I wasn't looking, she pocketed something else on her way out. She couldn't help herself. It was habitual. The necklaces were never returned. Items still went missing, but the incidents weren't as frequent as they had been. Every time there were whisperings about trying to find the possessions that had been taken, Sister Sorcia would make herself scarce. She never stopped that little habit. Stumped by the tales of her thieving friend, Catherine slumped back onto the ground, lost for words. She didn't want to believe it. Father Michael had no reason to lie to her now, though, so maybe she hadn't known Sister Sorcia as well as she thought she had. There are always two sides to everyone, Katherine. You should know this better than anyone. Some people are just very good at keeping the more sinful side hidden from the world. Eventually, it gets harder for them to keep the darkness buried in a box. It starts to creep out in waves, and people see glimpses of it. At first, they weren't quite sure if they believe what they see, because the person is different from the one they knew. It takes them a while to realize it was all an elaborate facade, a ruse to hide that person's flawed self. Catherine remained quiet as she absorbed what Father Michael had said. She understood his profound observation and knew it to be true. She'd always believed that some of the village girls were putting on an act. They were just too good to be true. No one is that pure. She nodded her head, more to herself than in agreement with Father Michael, and looked up at him from underneath her eyelashes. His piercing stare hinted there was another meaning behind his words. I've been told that this particular concept may speak deeply to you and your own habits, he murmured. Catherine gritted her teeth and narrowed her eyes into menacing slits. What does he know? She thought as she clenched her fists. But Father Michael seemed undeterred by her obvious anger towards him. He clicked his tongue and strode off to the chapel with his hands clasped firmly behind his back. To the innocent bystander, he appeared very much a man at ease. As soon as he was out of sight, Catherine allowed herself to relax and unclench her fists. Her nails had left sharp indentations on her palm. She closed her eyes out of frustration and tutted to herself. Father Michael didn't know her on a personal level, and other than his sinister confessions to her a few months prior, she hadn't told him anything that would warrant that level of judgment. It wasn't possible that he knew what she had done. Sister Nora must have told him. It was evident he was more than a mere henchman for Sister Nora. She wouldn't have shared such secrets with anyone of such a lowly status. No, their relationship was much more personal than he'd admitted. The irony of it wasn't lost on Catherine. What a hypocrite! Highlighting his belief that everyone has two sides, as if he were somehow exempt. There wasn't one living person in the orphanage that this didn't apply to. Catherine had seen it all around her and hadn't thought twice about it. It was just a way of life for those living in the convent of mercy. Fear drove the girls to do terrible things and hide their actions. Then, in return, they let the darkness hidden deep within them emerge to the surface. No wonder the crucifix has so much power over Sister Nora, Catherine thought. The walls are steeped with sin.